Welcome to the Holy Smokes Podcast, a show about faith, friendship, fine tobacco, and drink. I'm Steve Reiter in the Lion's Den. We just wrapped up Conclave 2024, and I am here with someone that I have wanted to get on the broadcast for at least 3 years, Mike Mears. Mike?
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. This is fantastic. This is fun.
So first question, what you smoking?
I'm smoking a Nica rustica. And here's the thing. I smoke, just in case my wife is listening, I smoke one cigar a day. I am not a cigar aficionado.
Yeah.
I smoke them if I got them. And so I can't tell you much about this smoke, but I do really enjoy it. And I like a lot of what Drew Estate does.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you're currently in the DC area. Where are you originally from?
Originally, I'm from Southern California, Orange County, city of Orange, and a great place to grow up. But the DC area kind of called about 25 years ago. And I went from Southern California to my very first campaign I wasn't running, I was managing a campaign for Congress here in Colorado, up in Denver.
Really?
Wasn't qualified, should have never been given the job, but I loved it and I got hooked bad.
All right, so before we get to politics, let's go back. And what kind of home did you grow up in?
Oh, well, it was a faith-filled home, kind of an institutional church, Roman Catholic.
Okay.
And when I was born, I was premature, and
Really?
3 pounds 7 ounces. So back in 1964, that was a big deal.
Yes, it was.
And so the nuns came in to visit my mother, and said to her, "Hey, we just seen this gift of God, and we believe he's either going to be a priest or president of the United States." So for many, many years, I lived with this idea that I was going to become a priest. And about age 16, 17, I started getting serious about my faith. And there's a campus ministry called Campus Life that went on to high school campuses. And that's where I learned about a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so at age 17, Tony Zacconi's house, I haven't talked to Tony since then, but I bent the knee. And I've been on this journey ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of kid were you growing up?
Well, you're looking at me, people can't see me, but a very skinny kid. I was into sports. I wanted to play football really, really bad, but at 5'9", 128 pounds, it wasn't going to happen. And so I got...
Unless you're a speedster and have unbelievable moves.
Well, so funny you would say that. My first practice was with the dummies.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of my friends telling me to quit, and they kept hitting me really, really hard. You need to run. You need to go on the cross-country team. So I was a little angry, and so I decided to run every time they practiced. And so I just run around this field, and who knew, but apparently that conditions you to be a cross-country runner. And so I started my freshman year, ran, I was a B-plus runner. I mean, I could do some times if you want, but got into it and loved it. But I was also a very, very gregarious, very extroverted.
No.
A little.
You?
A little spastic, and maturity didn't come for a very, very long time. It's still coming, I think. But
isn't it for most men?
Yeah, but God's used that in fantastic ways. I can take any room for the most part, and I can find friends.
Yeah.
And we'll get to about cigars soon enough, but that's why I like this fellowship, and I love going to cigar lounges around the country because I get to make friends with people who are different from me, and they all have opinions, and it's a lot of fun.
What did you do after high school?
I started my own business. I started Dirty Business Janitorial. It was a vehicle to get enough money to go to college.
Yeah.
And it kind of consumed me. I wasn't a college-bound kind of a kid, but I can sell like nobody's business. One small problem is I never made really enough money to hire anybody. And can I say the word suck? I suck at cleaning. I am not a detail-oriented person. So I was great at getting jobs. It was really tough So after about 10 years, I started when I was 19, just after my father died, and loved it. Was involved in a local church in Southern California, which is where I met my wonderful wife, Stephanie. And that kind of provided for a while until we made this jump into politics. And I have no aspirations to ever run myself.
Yeah.
I just love being behind the scenes and telling candidates what to do.
So let's talk about your parents. Because
Do I have to pay you later for this? Is this going to be like a therapy session? What is this?
It could be.
Okay,
Could
fair
be.
enough.
So you won't have to pay me, though.
I'll find you another cigar.
Tell me about who your parents were.
Okay. Genevieve, Mary Genevieve, but she went by Jen, was a Marine during World War II. She was part of the second wave of women Marines. Very proud of her service. She got married a little later in life, but was convinced God wanted her to have 10 children.
Whoa.
And so they tried really hard. My father, Chuck, Milton Charles, and he hated his first name, so he was Chuck.
Yeah.
And very, very active in our Catholic Church. You know, instilled a lot of independence. You knew that at age 18, you weren't staying at home long. You needed to go find a job and go find a place.
Yeah.
I know for some folks that seems kind of harsh, maybe even with today's generations, but I'm glad they did it. It toughened me up pretty quick.
Yeah.
When my father died, I did move back home for a little bit. My brother did as well. And
Help out mom.
Say again?
Help out mom.
Yeah, I'm not sure we did help her out. I think we were more of a burden, but we did try. Our intentions were good. But mom was devastated. She did not have 10 kids. She had 6, and I was the last. She was 43 when she had me.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 10, people were asking me if, how long my grandmother has been raising me.
Yeah.
And a funny story, one day somebody asked me how old my mother was, and I'm not good with numbers. And I said she was 35, and she's actually 53 at the time. And my mother was, that gave me a lot of favor with my mother for a while. Yeah. But it was a good household.
Yeah.
When I chose to leave the Catholic Church, it devastated my mom for a while. We reconciled very quickly because we have a faith in common.
Yeah.
And she loved Jesus greatly. And so when I went off to do a summer mission in Colombia, South America, she told her Bunco friends that it was okay because I was out there converting the Christmas and Easter Catholics. So for her, they were fair game, and it would allow her to get her seat that she wanted for Christmas and Easter.
So how did your dad die?
So he had a lot of health problems. He had a heart attack probably about 8 years before he passed away. We all made this joke. My sisters got married within 2 weeks of each other.
Yeah.
I'll let you read into that. Good Catholics.
Yes.
We needed to get married quick. And I asked my dad about this, and he said, well, I got a group discount. And I went, oh, okay. And for me, I will tell you, my sense of humor came from both my parents. My father loved to laugh, and my mother was extremely sarcastic. And it actually became a real problem when I first dated my wife, Stephanie, because she
didn't understand the sarcasm.
Oh, that wasn't her experience. As an only child, she didn't have to fight for food like I did. She didn't have to, fight for conversations. And so one day Stephanie said, I just don't want to go back to the house, to your mom's house. So I talked to my mom, and I just said, hey, just so you know, she doesn't want to, I don't know what to tell you. And she goes, oh, tell her we'll be good. So Stephanie comes, and my mother was very syrupy. I mean, it was just, oh, Mike, you're so wonderful, and, all this stuff. And it's like, you're just trying too hard. And Stephanie's looking at me, she goes, fine, just let the stick out. So we had a lot of fun. But my dad died of probably complications of heart failure. There's probably diabetes undetected back then.
Yeah.
And something that, obviously is a legacy that I would not like to repeat if I can help it. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So you have the business.
Yeah.
And then is that when you went to jump into politics?
Yeah, so this is before the internet, okay?
What year?
So we got married in 1990, but in 1991, Cal OSHA decided to crack down on home-based businesses. They felt that home-based cleaning companies were a threat because they would not label their spray bottles. And so they were requiring these small home-based businesses to comply. It's extremely ridiculous. I'm sure there was more to it than that.
I'm sure big businesses had something to do with trying to push to try and...
Now, truth be told, I did have somebody think that my carpet cleaner was milk because it was in a Solo cup one day and drank some carpet cleaner, but he lived to tell about it and everything's fine. Don't worry about it. He got his stomach pumped. It was fine. It was fine. We still talk every 10 years. So, but I liked the freedom, but I also didn't enjoy being a slave to the business. So anyway, Cal OSHA came along, and how I found out was bulletin boards. Remember those back in the day? So you'd hang out at the cleaning supply place, Smart and Final, places like that, and they'd have a bulletin board, and somebody posted about Cal OSHA. So I didn't know much about politics, although I knew I was conservative and all that, and so I went to my congressman, and he educated me on what was a federal issue and what was a state issue. So then I got involved in state stuff. And then all of a sudden I started volunteering.
In California?
In California. And
still in Orange County?
Still in Orange County. I helped get a friend of mine elected to city council. At this point, I was working for him part-time as a property manager. And then the other part of the time was as his communications director, which I, again, not qualified for, but it was just a lot of fun. He won. And he now just was elected to mayor without my help, but he was elected to mayor. It's amazing he was able to do that without me. And then somewhere in 95, I had I went to DC for the very first time and went to a training through an organization called the Leadership Institute. And it was campaign management school, and there was a gentleman who was a consultant, and he taught us all about direct mail, all the nuts and bolts of a campaign. And about 3 weeks later, I got a letter from this guy. I thought it was a personal letter made out to me. It was signed by him. I had no idea that it was a mass mailing. And I decided to respond in my very unorthodox, sarcastic manner and said, look, I'm fine here in Orange County. Things are great, but there's a need out there, and I think I can help. And so I moved to Colorado, sight unseen. Well, there's some steps.
Okay, all right, let's hear it.
The steps are, my wife was absolutely opposed. Absolutely opposed. I tried to find some legislative jobs in California, and just, I was still pretty young and unexperienced. And this guy did not want experience. He wanted a blank slate. He wanted a stupid idiot who would just do whatever he wanted him to do. I'm grateful for it. So my wife came back to me about 3 weeks later and said, I've been praying, and God has told me that if we have to move, I'm willing to move. And she quoted Ruth, Book of Ruth, and I went, okay, I'll do it. And sure enough, God moved. And so we moved to Arvada, Colorado. Yep. And
which is a suburb of Denver on the west side.
But our district wasn't Denver. It was Arvada, Boulder, that area. Fell in love with the area.
What was he running for?
So her name was Pat Miller.
Okay.
She was running for Congress against a guy named David Skaggs. And
as a conservative in a left-leaning district, I would assume?
Yeah, although, so she had run in the previous election and got 46% of the vote.
Oh, wow.
In a what you would call a red wave. And so everybody thought in 96, maybe this could be it. And she had some interesting views and things like that her opponent were able to exploit. And I still remember...
Like interesting, like what specifically?
Well, so she, gosh, this is dating us, I think, but there was the militia movement.
Yes. Colorado
had a very robust one. It was, I thought, misunderstood. It was really a bunch of constitutional lawyers complaining about the government. Yeah, there's some guys who also shoot guns while they're complaining. So somebody asked her in 94, hey, would you support the Colorado militia? And she said, yes, I will. But then she goes on and she talks about the threat of the UN, which was a big deal back then.
Yes.
And that we've all seen the black helicopters in Kansas and coming in over Colorado. And look, with the Second Amendment, you can't depend on the police force to come and protect you. You've got to protect yourself. Well, the left just exploited all that, and the commercials were just devastating. There was men in fatigues crouching through the forest, and Pat Miller does not believe in the rule of law. The first time I saw it, I was sleep deprived. I was living off of a George Foreman grill, and I had a hot dog in one hand, and I had a phone talking to the New York Times in the other. And I'm watching this commercial, and my pastor from California had come to visit me, and I put down the phone. He goes, "What's wrong?" I said, I think we just may have lost this race. And we did. We actually did worse for her. We raised more money, and nobody has been able to take that district. So anyway, I don't find this as exciting. I don't know how compelling this is for your podcast listeners, but I was really drawn to politics primarily because I saw an absence of Christians in politics. There were a lot of people who were running for office as Christians.
Yes.
But I didn't see the people around
living
them.
it out.
Yeah, and I didn't see them living it out. And we have that problem today. And frankly, I lost my way a couple times over the years because I wanted to present Christ to everybody that I saw, in a Christ-like manner, not necessarily, witnessing every single time somebody comes to the campaign door, but being ethical and all those things. But you get caught up.
Yeah.
And God's had to slap me a couple times and get me back. And
how do you feel you lost your way?
Oh, you get caught
examples.
up in partisan politics is horrible. God does not have a political party. And if somebody on the podcast listening, if this is a problem for you, I'm happy to talk you through this. But there are Christians
on both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah.
And you need to accept it.
Yeah, that genuinely believe
you need to accept it.
That caring for the poor the way that they feel the Democratic Party does is something that is very key. And there are others on the conservative side that say that, the Democrats aren't really caring for the poor.
Right.
As someone who is unaffiliated, I see both sides. I see the good on both sides, and I see the crap on both sides.
And I've been burdened with seeing both sides as well. I have friends who do not see both sides. It's black and white for them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really difficult. And my wife has laughed a couple times. We've talked about it. She goes, "Why did you get into politics?" And it's like, why does a Christian decide to become a garbage collector or an insurance salesman? We need Christians in all aspects of life, living their life to the fullest and living in grace in Jesus Christ. And that's what I've learned to do over the years. So
you ran that campaign, lost, then?
So then all these people came up to me during the campaign telling me I did a tremendous job. Tremendous. There's a Congressman Schaefer. His staff said, call me after the election. I said, okay, sure. So I did. They didn't return my phone calls. And there was a lot of that. And so there was an organization in Washington, D.C. called the National Right to Work Committee. And I knew a little bit about them. I was a union member. I had worked for Costco for 6 months while I was kind of transitioning and had to become a Teamster, which I still have my Teamster card, and I'll play it up. If I ever were to run, I'm sure somebody would exploit the fact that I'm really not a Teamster, but I have the card. I got proof. I got a receipt. But from Colorado, I went to Right to Work, and I was paid. So when they offered me the job, my boss called and said, "Yeah, we think you're going to be great. We're going to offer you $17,000 a year." Oh, okay. I got off the phone. I told my wife.
In what was 96, 97?
Yeah.
That's not very much.
And my wife, and I don't see myself as a crier, but there was some waterworks. It's like, I just didn't think it was going to be this hard. He calls back. He says, "Oh, I forgot you were married. I'm going to pay you $17,500. Now, turns out it was an hourly position, and they were encouraged overtime. So we did okay. From there, I started again. I kind of, it was more of a business organization, and I started, asking God what's next. And after 9/11, 5 years after working there, I had an opportunity to go to Sacramento, back to California, and run a family policy council, which is where I got hooked up with Focus on Family and some other folks. It was a disaster.
The state of the California
Policy, it was called,
the California Family Policy Council that you were at.
What really came out of it was I convinced folks to disassociate with that one and start a new one. And I just assumed that, the guy who blew the whistle would be honored with the next, executive director of the new organization, but that's not what happened. And I was able to get a job about 5 minutes after I decided I was leaving. My wife had gotten a call from her former employer and said, "Hey, I know your husband's got his dream job in Sacramento, but is there any way we can get you back?"
DC?
To DC. She worked for a builder developer out there. And my wife does not play poker. She does not. Yes, let's do it. Let's get it done. You name the price that you're going to give me. It's like, no, that's not how you do it. But we moved back. And I don't want to keep going through, but I worked for quite a few organizations. Susan B. Anthony, pro-life organization, pro-family organizations, different organizations, which kind of gave me a unique perspective on coalition building. And that's where I was going to really take off. I want to digress and tell you when I first started smoking.
We'll get to that one.
We will get to that? Okay.
Yeah,
that's pretty significant.
Okay.
That's a fun, that wasn't fun, but it was significant. But the last job I had was at Family Research Council before I got a phone call from the Republican National Committee. My boss at the time, Tony Perkins, this is 2013, had read a report from the RNC after they had lost 2 elections in a row, and he didn't like the so-called autopsy report about how they needed to go a little bit left and things like that. So we got on his radio show and said, stop giving to the RNC, stop, defund the GOP was his call. I don't totally agree with that. I don't think a third party is ever going to do anything in my lifetime. So I kind of was primed and ready for this phone call, and it was a block call, and it was actually the chairman at the time, Reince Priebus, and he asked me if I would come in for an interview, and I said, wait a second, how did you get my phone number? He goes, well, I'm sure I got it somewhere. I mean, he goes, I can't tell you what. I said, how do you know who I am? I mean, I was getting all conspiratorial. And so when I had the interview, I said, hey, look, I'm sorry, I was a little skeptical. And he goes, oh, no, you're exactly what we want. You're exactly what we want. And sadly, I was considered to be the conservative liaison for the Republican National Committee. I say sadly because for a lot of activists, a lot of conservatives, the thought was, shouldn't the RNC, all the staff be conservative? And some of them saw themselves as that. But clearly, I came from a different cloth. And so I tried to ingratiate myself with these new folks I was working with at the RNC, started in 2013. And in order to do that, I started knocking on doors and doing all the bread and butter stuff that I hated doing when I was moving up. But I figured, I started doing some videos. And I didn't really have to knock on a whole lot of doors. What I did was the videos, and we'd send these out and encourage other people to do the same thing. And so by 2016, there was big change coming. Mr. Trump became President Trump. I moved into a new role with faith engagement, which is about the same time as I found Holy Smokes. And it was great comfort for me because this is a great group of people, men and women. And today, Matt Hurd asked everybody to throw out a word about Holy Smokes this weekend, but I can use the same word for Holy Smokes in general, and that's encouragement. It's good to talk to like-minded people when it comes to your faith, right? I don't care about your politics really until election day. I do care about your politics on that one day, and I prefer you to vote for whoever I'm pushing. And if I have to appeal to the fact that if you don't vote for my guy, I'm out of a job, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to do that. In 2020, I was building a deck, and I just reminded everybody that, hey, look, if you don't vote for my guy, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this deck. And I think I might have gotten some votes that way. It's very unorthodox. I didn't know the issues, but I knew what mattered. And Mrs. Mears really liked this gig. It was good. So I did that up until faith engagement was very, very interesting. We'd had another gentleman who had done it, and he had worked primarily with evangelicals. When I took over, they asked me to also work with other faiths.
Yeah.
And, I just stepped out in faith. I got some criticism. I put on Facebook one day a picture of me and a colleague with a Hindu spiritual leader. Mm-hmm. He has apparently 40 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah. And
took this picture, and I was asked why I was taking pictures with Muslims. And
oh, Lord.
And,
Man.
But here's the thing. I felt that God kept saying to me over and over again, not audibly, I'm not crazy. I felt the presence, the Holy Spirit, prompting me to go to places we had never been before. And, I can't show you electorally. I can't show you with that kind of metric, but I have new friends in all different places. And when I just started doing a Muslim outreach, it was probably the toughest outreach. I couldn't really tell a whole lot of my RNC friends that I was doing this because they were so anti-Muslim. And yet these are folks who, on a political level,
line up.
Very
much so.
And,
on the broad issues, on the big issues.
But again, you don't get to have serious conversations if you're not talking, right?
Yes.
I want to make friends.
Yes.
We were talking this weekend about evangelism, and somebody was saying, well, a lot of people, they want to build relationships before they witness. Well, I think witness is while you're building relationships. It doesn't always have to be words, although I think it's pretty evident within the first couple hours of getting to know me that God, Jesus Christ, it's primary in my life.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me perfect. I know that the podcast is going to make me sound really, really good, and I appreciate that, but it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a struggle, and again, I go back, this is why this group is so important. I remember meeting Kay, who's the founder, and when we met at a cigar shop, we apparently had met 10 years earlier at another job, and I just, we have contact, right? And I'm sure other people do this. You never talk to them, right? But they pop up on your contact from time to time, and you go, well, who is this?
Yeah.
And so that's how I think I got involved in Holy Smokes.
Mm. So you were at the RNC.
Yeah.
And not too long ago, there was a big leadership change, and they cleaned house.
Yeah. So after faith engagement, in 2021, I left for a brief time. It was time for me to leave. And so I started my own LLC. It was the first time I'd come to a conclave, and I was a wreck because, I don't have a lot of confidence in myself. I'm going to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I'm always doubting myself. And so all of a sudden now I'm back into I'm eating what I kill, business-wise. And God absolutely showed up. And so I worked for the new, well, he wasn't the governor then in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, doing faith engagement and things like that. And I had some pro-life organizations, and I had a couple of other candidates. And I was able to do just fine. Well, right around December, everything dries up, right? Because it's, the election's over. And a buddy of mine who I had worked with at the RNC was now the chairman of South Carolina, GOP, Drew McKissick, got himself elected as co-chairman. And he wanted somebody who knew where all the bodies were at the RNC. He wanted somebody who knew when they were, snowing him. And so he hired me. And so I came back as his chief of staff. And I'm pretty sure that there were some folks who weren't pleased to see me, but they all smiled and nodded like good politicians. And it was a good year, good run. He visited a lot of places. But then when Donald Trump decided, once he had the primary election sewn up, and it was time to kind of take over the RNC, he made a decision. He wanted somebody that he knew he could trust. And he picked a gentleman from North Carolina, another good friend of mine, Michael Watley. But what the president didn't realize, because he doesn't care about this kind of stuff, was that in the bylaws, if you change the gender of the chairman, you have to automatically change the gender of the co-chairman. And at the time, he felt bad, but when he realized he could put his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, in
as the
co-chair, he soon forgot all about us. And so we had a vote on late February in Houston, and on that next Monday, I thought I was going to be fine. There was some indication that I would be reassigned, but I came into work, and a funny story that day, I had a nice white shirt on, and I spilled coffee on the way, and so I turned right around and got a new shirt, came in. Well, apparently I had messed up their plans because they were going to let me go. So they went floor to floor. They went with the top floor, which is where I was at, and then they went down, down, down. And so they let me go quickly. And for about 4 hours, I thought I was the only one that had been let go. But by the end of the day, 5 of us had been let go. Senior staff had been let go outright. And then 65 more had been asked to resign and reapply for their jobs. And it was a cleaning of the house. I don't disagree with it. When it's your job, you don't really.
Yeah.
But again, I was faced with, what do you do? And this is how God gets my attention. It's through my work. I'm almost 60. I should know this by now. This is so I can get ahead of it, but it never happens. And so for about 72 hours, I just wallowed in pity. And my wife came home one day. She works for our local church, and she came home after a long day, and I'm still in the same clothes I had on in the morning, and I hadn't moved. Well, there was evidence that I moved because there was trash all around me, and the dog's looking at her like, "Hey, can you take me out?" Because he wouldn't do it. And she said, "How long is this gonna go on? Because God's gonna take care of you. I'm supportive of you.
Ooh.
You're gonna be fine."
Ooh.
I said, "I'm getting there." And within a week, I had a new job. But it was the best of all worlds. I'm able to have my LLC, so I have a couple different clients, do small projects for them and things like that. But then I work for an organization called the American Constitutional Rights Union. And Alan West, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, retired Fox contributor, was a congressman, very
Florida.
Accomplished. Read his Wikipedia page. It's very exciting, his military career. So we go around the country right now in very key states like Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Georgia, and talk to people about all sorts of things. One project that we're working on is vulnerable voters who are in assisted care living, senior living situations. People talk about voter fraud all the time. Well, it's a huge issue. We take a small slice, and this is our lane, and nobody bothers us. We come alongside these centers, and we help them protect their citizens, their clients. So it's been exciting. I'm really enjoying it, and we're going to see where God leads us. And again, Holy Smokes has been a part of this little journey every step of the way.
So your LLC, what are you really focused on? Who are the kind of clients that you're bringing in?
So after 30 years, I know quite a few people. And so there's a lot of public affairs companies who hire young people who don't know people, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk. So, hey, we have this op-ed, and that we need a signer for, and I thought for sure this was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that, I was going to get paid, the folks that signed were going to ask me for a part of it. None of them have ever done it. They all signed, and I worked for 2 or 3 of those, and then I worked for a couple, like I said, pro-life, pro-family organizations. The pro-life community is in a transitory situation right now with Roe v. Wade being overturned. And being wise at this point, at this time in history, is very, very critical. The old ways are not going to cut it anymore, and that's another podcast. But again, God continues to use me. I may do some stuff with some of the Senate candidates, but that won't happen until probably September.
Yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit about that, how the old ways aren't working.
Well, so what people seem to think is that the pro-life community, those who are passionately against abortion, are in agreement on all aspects. And the truth of the matter is they're not.
No.
And so oftentimes compromise is a dirty word, especially when we're talking about human life.
Yeah.
And yet, for the last 30 or 40 years, I'm not sure how legislation has saved babies. I'm sure there's going to be some folks who will show me the statistics and this and that. But the old ways of trying to legislate, trying to force this down people, I think there needs to be, this is where churches come in, I think there needs to be a recommitment within our churches to do discipleship. Mm-hmm. I think it comes down to discipleship. I think it comes down to, how we treat a family, and they are a family. As soon as they conceive, they're a family. Yeah. How we treat them when they're in crisis. Yeah. And so I'm focusing more now on the service side, crisis emergency centers, and trying to help with funding and finding donors who want to be practical during this time rather than legislation and political.
I like that. Mike Mears, let's get to rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Rapid fire. Fire. Here.
So how's that stick treating you?
It's good. I can't smoke and talk at the same time.
That's a problem for even me when I was featured. When did you first try cigars or pipe?
Okay, so I've had cigars like a lot of people on, golf outings, things like that. But August 15th, 2012, I was working for Family Research Council, which is a pro-family organization. And they had just come out in favor of standing with Chick-fil-A, because Chick-fil-A's founder had talked about marriage between a man and a woman.
Yep.
Well, you got to know that there's some people who are not going to like that. And so a young man named Floyd came in and had a revolver with 50 rounds
of ammunition
and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches that he intended to put in the mouths of
dead FRC employees.
Because of quick thinking of a security personnel who got shot in his arm, he was able to subdue him, and we were never really in harm's way. But what if, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just one of those things where you think about it and you go, what if? And we had about 8 hours of just sitting in our offices. They had cut off pretty much all communication to the outside world. I was able to call my wife and tell her, everything is fine. You're going to be seeing some stuff on TV. Just don't worry about it. I'm fine. And that's important to the story because later they finally released us, and I call her and I say, hey, I'm on my way home. Can we grab dinner? She goes, oh, sweetie, I've got this project at church and I need to finish it. Can we meet after? And I'm going, okay. And I'm laughing as I'm driving because I told her I was fine. So she believed me, but I was shaken. And so there's a cigar lounge right by my church. And I walk in and immediately there's 3 guys from my church smoking away. And one has become my best friend who runs a homeless ministry called the 25th Project. On the 25th of every month, he goes out into the woods of Woodbridge and we meet needs. And we don't necessarily preach Jesus all the time, but when it comes up, sure. But January, February is propane months. We do a chili cook-off in the woods with homeless folks. We do all sorts of fun stuff, and we treat them as human beings, and we learn their names. And if they want to get out of the woods, we're there to help them. And it's messy, it's rough, but that's what he does. Well, anyway, so right up there on all the TVs at the cigar shop, we're was the Fox News and CNN and the coverage of the shooting. And I said, hey, I've just been there. And the shop owner says, well, I think you need a cigar. I said, well, I think it's my first one. What do you think I should smoke? And first cigar I ever smoked was a Brick House. And I was hooked. Started going to the cigar shop probably once a week. I don't know when I became a one-a-day cigar smoker. Probably during the 2020 campaign. That seemed to be a stress relief, and really enjoyed it. So I guess that's not a really long answer, but yeah.
You ever do pipe?
You know what? That's a lot of moving parts. And I think I've already, distinguished myself as somebody who does not like details.
Yeah.
That's just too detail-oriented.
I did a pipe class at a pipe shop out in Falcon. There was a pipe tobacco rep who came in and kind of did this class and kind of taught us how to do it. And I've fallen in love with pipe. I mean, if I'm smoking, I'm doing the pipe more often than I am.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Than cigars.
And you have
as
a long
of late.
pipe, right?
What's that?
Don't you have a long pipe or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a longer one.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. My father was a pipe smoker.
Yeah. Most expensive cigar you've ever smoked?
Okay. It was a Gurkha. And just in case Gurkha is a Holy Smokes member, I'm talking very quietly as if somehow they can't hear. I was given a cigar that was retailed at $1,000.
Oh.
Yeah, now, I don't know about you. I will not spend $1,000 on a cigar.
No.
No. So, is it really worth? But that's the most expensive. I've had quite a few Davidoffs. When my wife finally embraced my hobby,
yes.
She went to my cigar shop and she goes, I understand you can pull up his profile. And this very opportunistic clerk said, oh, yeah, he really likes Davidoffs. I wasn't sure whether I should go and thank him or, strangle him because they were expensive. But that's.
What's your favorite cigar?
What am I smoking right now?
Whatever you're smoking right now. That's the answer Owen Hill gave me one time.
Yeah, I like Nica rustica. I'm a cheap cigar. Well, there are no cheap cigars anymore, but I'm in the $9 to $13 range, and so Henry Clay's are my go-to.
Henry Clay.
I like Henry Clay because there's a story there. He's a former U.S. senator. Yeah. He was called the Great Compromiser, and not that I'm a great compromiser, but I just think it's a great story, and I love telling my no-compromise conservative friends that I'm smoking a compromised cigar. So,
well, I remember. I think I've said this on the podcast before. I'm a big history nerd.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I was one of those nerdy freshmen in high school that watched Ken Burns' Civil War series. I watched every single episode. And on that first episode, Shelby Foote, who's a Civil War historian,
sure,
they're talking to him about the whole lead up to the Civil War. And he says this quote, it's brilliant. He says, we as Americans like to think of ourselves as uncompromising. But the very foundation of our government is founded on compromise. And in the case of the Civil War, it failed.
Right. Well, you're going to open up a can of worms. I don't like the Civil War as an example of that, but I think that the best is the enemy of the good.
Like specifically in the case of slavery, we could have gone about it in a way that Great Britain did.
Right.
There have been other states, other countries that have abolished slavery and done it in a way that didn't shed the blood of 600,000 Americans.
Right.
More than, because that was deaths, 600,000, if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I wasn't there. I know I'm old, but I wasn't there. But that's a subject, race relations is a subject that I care about deeply. And again, it's something that if you're not talking to people with different backgrounds, different pigmentations, as I like to say, because I think we're one race. Tony Evans talks about,
human race.
The human race, right?
Yeah.
But you listen to perspective, and you got to be able to listen to anger, and you got to be able to listen to disappointment. And it's hard, but over the last 5 years, I've gotten better at listening. And the times that I listen the best is when I find the person comments later on that I was a great counselor because I didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. I just listened. And I wanted to say some things. Some of the things that some of those folks are telling me are making my, my toes curl. But I don't know when to jump in, so I just listened.
And here's the thing. We didn't grow up in an environment that they did.
Right.
They come at life from a very different perspective, and their life experiences have brought them to a place where this is what they believe. And so,
right.
But just sitting down and listening to people is something that over the last, I want to say probably 15 years, I've really started to do. I mean, I was in my conservative bubble working at Focus and working within that in the evangelical bubble and just starting to get out and just, because one of the good things, I've said this before, one of the good things about working at Focus is I worked with every denomination under the sun. And kind of getting out from that denominational bubble and oh, wow, these Catholics, they love God.
Sure.
And they're doing some amazing things. And over here, I'm working with all these different denominations. And I may not agree theologically with them, but, I know who they are. I know they're a good person. And I know that we've bled and sweat in the trenches.
Right.
And so getting that kind of perspective, I think it's huge how it opens you up as a human being.
I used to joke at the RNC that diversity means something a little bit different to me as a guy who's doing faith engagement. Diversity might be racial lines and ethnic lines. For me, it's in fear of putting Baptists, Presbyterians, Lutherans all in the same room and, hoping that they don't talk to each other. And then we have Pentecostals and, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But that's diversity for me.
What's your favorite liquid pairing with your smoke?
I like a whiskey sour. I know a lot of my Holy Smoke friends really like the bourbons and things like that and whiskeys, and I just never got into it. And if you give me a nice bottle of bourbon or whiskey, I'm probably going to pair it with something. So do yourself a favor, give me Maker's Mark, give me my favorite monkey shoulder, because you're not going to be upset when I put a Coke in my monkey shoulder or something like that, right? Now, if you give me like some sort of 24, single malt, and you watch me mix it. Yale Kim, who is a avid Holy Smoker, great guy, brought a Japanese whiskey to my home and left it. And a buddy of mine came in and said, hey, can I have some of this? Oh yeah, knock yourself out. Hey, pour me a glass. And then I started to put a Coke in it. And I watched the blood rush out of his face. And no judgment. So I enjoy that. I also enjoy coffee with my cigar. So there you go.
Most interesting person you've ever met through cigars?
Oh, I don't think I was prepped for this question. So my most favorite, they're not famous.
Yeah.
But one of my, I have a ton of stories of cigar lounges that I've gone to. And in 2020, I went to a cigar lounge right by, it was in New Jersey, but by the Philly airport. And it was known as a policeman cop bar, right? You bring your own alcohol, and they have a bartender. The place was owned by Russians, right? And so I have a flight the next morning at 6 a.m. to Denver, of all places. And so I thought I'd go in and, I'm making friends. And so invariably somebody says, what do you do? And now I become, since I'm working for the Trump campaign, I become an instant minor celebrity. And it's a lot of fun, I'll be honest with you, right? Because I'm not having to buy things, It's all good. I don't have to expense something. It's wonderful. And but the sign on the door said, midnight, we're done. So I get up and they go, no, Trump guy, we are going to do shots. Again, I'm not a big drinker. I don't know etiquette. And so I just start drinking.
Yeah.
There's no sipping here at all. I just keep pounding. And finally, one of the cops comes over to me, puts his hand on his shoulder. It wouldn't be the last time he did that night. And he says, sir, you don't have to keep doing that. Every time you do that, they have to do it. And you need to stop it. And I went, okay, I'll sip. And I can't sip. So now it's 3 o'clock in the morning. My flight leaves at 6. And I'm ready to leave. And the policeman stops me and says, sir, I'm sorry, I just can't let you go. And I'm fine. I've only had 7 shots, maybe 8, maybe 9. Who knows? It's over a course of 5 hours. So he says, no, sir, let me call one of my squad cars and we'll take you to the airport. No, I've seen too much Law and Order. I ain't getting in the back of the squad car, number one. Number two, what do I do with my rental car?
Yeah.
He goes, well, we'll get you an Uber and I will take your rental car back to you. Or back for you.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was the fact that I'd had multiple shots.
Yeah.
I'm not making good decisions. So I gave a total stranger. He didn't show me his badge. I never asked him for his badge. Who knows who this man was? He took my rental car back. And somewhere, because back then I had to be connected to the phone because, who knew who was going to call you. But I was up in the air and I get the bing that somebody had returned my rental car. And so it's those are the kind of people
Nice.
that if I can remember stories, I'm sure I've had cigars. Oh, I had cigar with Dennis Prager once. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's the regular folks that I get to talk to. So.
All right. For the non-cigar questions, Marvel or DC? Or neither?
This is going to hurt for a lot of people. Neither.
Okay.
I just.
You weren't into superheroes as a kid?
No.
Okay.
No.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, Star Wars. Absolutely. I mean, not to the extent of some of these folks. I mean, so I was a Star Wars guy because I saw the Star Trek people and they were weird, with all due respect. But now, Padawans and all these, I mean, it's entertainment.
You like Star Wars, but you're not a convention guy.
No, and I don't remember anything. I have to watch a movie at least 7 times before I remember it.
Sports teams. I know one of them, Angels.
Yeah, so Angels. Favorite movie, by the way, is Moneyball.
Moneyball. That's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah.
I just rewatched that recently. It's
That
so good.
is on Rewind. I think I see it at least once every couple months, and I can quote it for you. It's at some point maybe not as compelling of a podcast with just quotes from Moneyball, but Angels. Love the Anaheim Angels. Grew up in that area, obviously. You heard me. I called them the Anaheim Angels.
Yes.
You want to
That's
call
what
them
they
whatever
should
you
be.
want. You own the team. You call them whatever you want, but they're Anaheim Angels for me. Los Angeles Rams, the LA Rams. Grew up rooting for the Orange County Rams, even though they were Los Angeles Rams. A lot of the Rams players lived up in the Orange Hills. In 1981, Jack Youngblood and I met at DK's Donuts down the hill, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. And those of you who know your history know that the Rams were in the Super Bowl the year before and got trounced by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I asked an innocent question. I said, Mr. Youngblood, why aren't you at the Super Bowl? Thinking
Yeah.
that you all got free tickets.
Yeah.
That's not how he took it. He took it that he should be in the Super Bowl, and he had somehow failed me, right? And so he looked at my eclair, which is DK's Donuts on Chapman Avenue, eclairs. He said, how would you like me to shove that down your throat? And scared the skinny little run of a kid, but it was a great story. So Rams and then Clippers, because I'm a eternal optimist. So I'm almost not a Rams fan anymore because they won the Super Bowl. It's kind of, okay, we won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I'm more, a sufferable fan. I'm where the Angels are right now in the cellar. I'm perfectly fine with that. I mean, it's going to make it so much sweeter in 10, 15 years when they win another World Series with Mike Trout's son.
Who were your favorite athletes growing up?
Well, so I was a runner. And so this is dating myself.
Yes.
And Olympian Steve Scott,
Okay.
middle distance runner. I got a chance to run a 10K my sophomore year of high school. And I had never run a 10K before. I'd done the institutional cross-country running and track, but never like a public 10K. And so my coach was there, and he pointed out this guy. He says, I want you to keep up with him. And I'm dumb. I'm just dumb at this point. Maybe still dumb. But I listened to this father figure in my life, and I kept up with Steve Scott for about a half mile. But it was the most glorious half mile ever. So I followed his, a lot of Edwin Moses, a lot of track and field guys.
Yeah.
I just loved watching track and field. So I've kind of lost track of it. So I don't know who's running in the Olympics, but pretty soon here I'll turn that on and start rooting for the Americans.
What kinds of music do you love?
I like jazz. I've been lately getting into bluegrass. Trying to remember the bluegrass. Well, their folk music, Trampling on Turtles. It's whatever is on Spotify.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to call it. Maybe somebody will call in and say that's not right, Mears.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. But I listen to just about any kind of music.
Favorite food?
I want my wife to listen to this, but nachos. I love nachos. It's a battle every time I go to a restaurant on the road. I go in, salad, nachos. That's what I order. Yeah.
All right. Dogs, cats, neither, or both?
Dogs. I'm
Dog breed?
partisan, yeah. So it's whatever I have. I've got a cockapoo named Tuxedo. He's all black except for a white tuft on his chest, hence the name Tuxedo.
Nickname growing up?
A lot of them, but the one that is stuck is Mearsy.
Mearsy.
Yeah.
I like that.
You know, in the last 10 years, I've started to become the oldest guy in the room professionally. And so Mearsy just kind of has a nice little ring to it, and I embrace it. When I left the RNC the first time, some folks, I think they were trying to make fun of me, but they got me a fat head of myself, if you're not familiar with fat heads.
Yeah.
It's a life-size version of me. And so I started taking it to meetings, putting it in, and then leaving the meeting and just going, I'm here. You know, I'm listening. But that's the Mike Mears. So, yeah.
What's one unusual fact that few people know about you?
Man, I'm always ready for this question. And then it comes and I get stumped. Now that unusual fact is that I ran cross country and was actually fairly good, fairly decent. For those listening, I am south of 300 pounds and going souther, but not at age 19. It was 135. I was 150 when I got married.
Have you or someone you deeply trust ever experienced anything extremely unusual? So it could be something spiritual, could be UFOs, paranormal.
So a year ago, an older gentleman, a pedestrian, jumped a median of a 4-lane highway as I was driving 50 miles an hour in my 2015 Volvo, which had been just paid off. Actually, it had been paid off for a while, but I was hoping to keep it for a while. I clipped him on the passenger side. He went stumbling. Turned out he's 72 years old. He had lots and lots of Fireball on his possession, at least 5 bottles that I counted. Mm-hmm. So not everybody can tell you that they hit somebody. And it's very unusual. It was very traumatic. I had flashbacks. I wanted to help this guy. My insurance company, absolutely not. You do not contact this man. You know, my church was ready to help him out. He's now suing us, and we'll let my insurance company take care of that. But from a spiritual standpoint, again, I was at a crossroads when it happened, and God just shows up in unusual places, right? And when you seek him, you find him. And I asked God for wisdom. He gave me wisdom in that situation. I probably tell the story too much because I think some people feel like maybe you don't share that. Because the first thing that everybody asks, and I forget to tell them, he's doing well. At 72, when you get hit by a car, you break both legs, you're not doing fine. Yeah. But he lived.
Yeah.
And I pray for him every day. Another fun fact about this gentleman is that he is a political refugee from Uzbekistan. And I know I butcher the country name all the time because I'm a good American. But I'm sure he's seen some things in his life. And so my wife and I have been praying for him for a while.
Name 3 things that you were thankful for at this point in your life.
My wife, my faith, and my ability to do work. And I don't take that last one for granted. So,
if you could be any animal, what would you be?
You know what? I really resent my dog, I'll be honest. The way he lounges around and just, eats off of everybody's plate. At the same time, that is very attractive. So yeah, I'd like to be a dog. Yeah.
If you could live anywhere, where would that be?
That's a great question, because we are now realizing with this new internet age, I know I'm a little behind the times calling it the new internet age, but I can live anywhere. And so when my wife finally retires from her job, I think we're going to move someplace. So we're looking at South Carolina. We're looking at some parts of Florida. I have asked to put Iowa on the list because as a Politico, and at age 72, when I reached that, every presidential candidate would have to come through my my kitchen table, and that just sounds fun. And I'm sure I'll be a crotchety old man and I have great questions and the whole bit. My wife isn't on board with that. So she figured out, she's not extremely political, but she figured out that what my desire was to be in a first in nation state. And she found out that South Carolina is one of those. So we're looking at South Carolina.
What's your greatest strength and what's your greatest weakness?
I would like to say that my greatest strength is acceptance of people. And sometimes that there's a double-edged sword there, but I just enjoy people. I enjoy hearing their stories. I love to listen when I'm not talking over them. I love to hear what's going on. And weakness, I've already touched on it. If it's administrative, I'm not gonna. But at the same time, it's something that, I think a couple years back, 10 years ago, Strength Finders came out and said, play to your strengths, play to your strengths. I'm at an age where I think I'd like to now, I'm not going to play to my weaknesses. I'm not going to go become an accountant, but I'd like to take that script in my head that says I'm unorganized and flip it. So that's what we're working on is at age 60.
Who's been the greatest influence in your life?
And I can't say Jesus Christ, because that's the Bible answer. I'm going to say my wife. Now, definitely we want her to hear this. No, she's been my greatest cheerleader if I just listen to her, right? In this last transition, she was so supportive. Normally, look, for my wife, I'm not going to make a generalization, but for my wife, security, economic, physical security is important. Mm-hmm. And early on in my career, I'd come home and I'd share problems, and one of her first questions was, well, wait, are you going to get fired? Which would just cause anxiety in my spirit. And so I stopped telling her about the problems I had at work. But I've gone back to sharing with her. And lo and behold, God has been working in her life, in her heart. And she's been given the gift of discernment. And I listen as best I can. And if I don't, she will tell me, why didn't you listen? That part we're going to edit out.
What does Holy Smokes mean to you, and how has it contributed to your spiritual journey?
So for a lot of people, Holy Smokes is a Facebook page. It's a safe place, I guess. You can talk about your cigars. There's a gentleman out of Florida, John, I won't say his last name, who religiously posts about his cigars. And actually, I learn about new cigars that I want to try from him. But then it's these gatherings. And I didn't catch on that Holy Smokes was an in-person experience until maybe 2 years ago. Yeah. And obviously the Colorado Springs area and Florida and there's some other states that have strong chapters. Getting together with guys, and I've gotten together with men. And of course, because of what I do, we want to talk about politics. And I have disciplined myself recently in the last 3 years to ask, what is God doing in your life? And I will then share and try to be vulnerable. And I'm more than happy to tell you that I just had an argument with my wife. One, I do that because nobody expects it. That's not your normal church experience. Mm-hmm. But it's where church happens. It's where fellowship happens. It's, my wife and I are having troubles. And I go, wait, we're not having trouble. We just had an argument. No, that's not what happens. But you get that. It's a camaraderie. So even now, we had some guys from our Florida chapter just wave and tell me they're leaving. So I might have to hook up with them at some point. But it's just, again, I go back to that word encouragement. I know there's a couple guys nationwide that I can contact and just say, hey, would you pray for me? You know, you would think that you can share your crap with people outside of your circle and somehow they're just going to be loving and, oh, it's going to be fine. No, that's not what happens here. There's some accountability. Tell me the real story.
Yeah.
Tell me both sides of the story. And that's actually quite refreshing. And so, you know, I encourage folks to join Holy Smokes and, you know, you get into it, you know, you get what you put into it and it means a lot.
If you could have a holy smoke with any 3 people throughout history, living or deceased, who would they be? Can't name Jesus.
Yeah, so I knew this one was coming. So Abraham Lincoln, for sure. He was a pipe smoker. Abraham Lincoln was at a very, very transitional time in our country. I'm using some political language, right? It was, wow. I mean, we're on the backside of it, so we know how it ends, right? But I'm
not... At the time.
Yeah.
At the time. Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson, because of, I really want to know what he was thinking about taking all the miraculous things that Jesus did out of his Bible. I don't know how you do that. I'm not sure that you can have a morality outside of Jesus Christ, and the miracles are a part of that.
Yeah. And
the supernatural is a part of that. So the last one, oh, you know what? Yeah. His name is Mordecai. I have been so influenced by the book of Esther and Mordecai, so much so that I named my LLC Mordecai Strategies. And if you know the story, Mordecai is the man behind Esther. And he's got as much skin in the game as she does. Sure, she's going to get executed first, but Mordecai's, you know, quick to be killed as well. But his wise counsel, everybody looks at Esther when the verse, it talks about such a time as this, you know, but Mordecai says, relief is coming. God's going to do this. Maybe he's going to use you for such a time as this. What wisdom, what great wisdom. And so, I don't know if he smokes cigars. I'm sure he did something, maybe.
All right, last question. If we're to meet 1 year from today, and I got a bottle of Monkey Shoulder, we're mixing a whiskey sour, what are we celebrating?
Lord willing, that I'm on a health journey. It's a multi-year journey, a lot of fits and starts. We're celebrating weight loss and just healthiness. At 60, when your father died at 56, at least for me, I cherish every year. So,
Mike Mears, thanks for being on the Holy Smokes podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey everyone, I wanted to announce that we have Holy Smokes gear. That's right, we have swag. We currently have hats, shirts, stickers like for your vehicle or your travel humidor, magnets, even branded bourbon glasses for a limited time. Go to holysmokes.club and click on the shop tab. That's holysmokes.club. I'm super proud of the shirts. They're made with Bella Canvas shirts that are soft and incredibly comfortable. The hats fit wonderfully, which can be a problem for those of us with big noggins. We plan on having a lot more to offer, like Guayabera shirts, additional t-shirt designs, beanies, polos, hoodies, cigar accessories, and much more. Check it out. And even if you don't make a purchase now, be sure to sign up for that email list, as I've thrown a couple big discount coupon codes for those exclusively on that list. So click the shop tab at holysmokes.club. Thanks.